Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Monday Q&As, and yeah, I'm actually getting time to film these. I put up a post on the Facebook fan page saying I wasn't going to get videos up this weekend, that I might not be able to, that something important had kind of come up. And just the gist of that, everything is cool. Somebody I care about a lot needed an unexpected medical procedure. I had taken them in for a doctor appointment, and they had had a procedure a couple days before, and there were some complications with it, and they had to go back under sedation. And I had to make sure they were okay this weekend. So it kind of prevented me from getting other stuff done. But for those who sent their prayers and regards and everything on the fan page, everything's good, everything's fine, no problems. I'm able to get some videos in and get some work done. So let's get this started. All right, first question. Do bigger muscles require more oxygen and therefore will make you worse at endurance? Will you run out of breath faster? Yeah, that's true to some extent. Now, gaining muscle is going to be a lot better than gaining fat in terms of VO2 max and things like that, because you can develop a lot more capillary beds. And there's a lot of things you can do there as a result of the muscle mass, that it's not going to be as detrimental as just dead weight from fat, but it is going to cause problems. I mean, it does take more oxygen, and your lungs are going to have a limited capacity. So if you're carrying a lot of extra muscle mass, it's going to affect endurance. But generally, for it to be enough of a difference to make a difference, you have to be big enough that you're beyond natural limits. You're going to have to be big enough that you're generally on anabolics of some type for it to really be significant, or you're going to have to be competing at some really high level in some endurance sport. For most people who just want to run a marathon successfully and place well, the odds that you're going to gain enough muscle mass, if you're completely drug-free or only on modest amounts of anabolic drugs, that it's really going to affect your ability to place decently in a marathon, is going to be pretty unlikely. So I wouldn't worry about that unless you're trying to compete at the upper echelons in an endurance sport and actually trying to make a living at it. Like, if you want to make a living as an endurance athlete, it's probably going to be a problem at some point if you're carrying too much muscle mass. Again, unless you're so big that if you're using several grams of gear plus growth hormone, insulin, things like that, you might be too big to compete in endurance sports, but in short of that, it's pretty unlikely. So I really wouldn't worry about this being a significant problem, even though there is some truth to it to some extent. All right, next question. What are your thoughts on the slingshot? Mark Bell's slingshot. Actually, I owned one of these back in the UK. I had mixed feelings on it. I mean, I look at some of it as it being only as useful as any sort of accommodating resistance. Maybe not the best thing to bring up your raw bench, even though you can pause with it. The lockout isn't as important on the raw bench. Equipped benchers, absolutely a good thing. Maybe some sort of field athletes, football players, rugby players, things like that. Okay, I could see some benefits to them using the slingshot for that overload at the top and just getting some accommodating resistance. So maybe, I guess it depends on the type of athlete as to whether I see it as useful or not. But the other thing I do kind of like about the slingshot, having messed with one, is that once you put it on correctly, it does kind of train you to bench with a little better technique, because it requires you to tuck the elbows at the bottom. It pulls your elbows in at the bottom. And for people who are learning how to bench and learning how to get some of the mental cues down correctly to bench press, it can be a valuable training tool. So, I mean, I'm not really wild about it. I don't think it's an amazing device, but does it have uses? Can I see good applications for it? Yeah, I absolutely can. So I can see it being useful. I'm just not super wild about it. But again, for certain types of athletes and maybe helping people learn how to bench correctly, yeah, I think it's a viable tool. It's a valid, useful object. All right, next question. Hey, Jason, in your opinion, would one lifting session a week be enough to prevent muscle atrophy and loss of strength when going through an intensive school program? I hope two very difficult programs, Fire Academy and a paramedic program, each will take most of my time, and I probably won't be able to lift 3 days a week. Would one lifting session a week prevent me from detraining? Thanks. Well, it really depends upon how advanced you are in your training. If you're an advanced lifter already, you're probably going to detrain. You're going to see a little bit of atrophy, but it will probably help you maintain the majority of it. If you're a novice or early intermediate, as long as you get one really good full body session in, you get enough volume, workload, and intensity, yeah, it may very well be enough for you to maintain all of your gains. And for some novices, if you're actually a true novice and you do something like that, you would still actually probably get a little bigger and stronger, even off of the one session per week. Again, provided sufficient stimulus. It just wouldn't be ideal. But for novices and early intermediates, it will probably be enough to sustain all of your strength and muscle mass. It's just don't expect to make any gains at that point. And advanced lifters, no, you're going to detrain from it. All right, next question. How many bodyweight pull-ups can you do, and is there a way to push through plateaus? Stuck at 15 reps for a few months now. I really don't know how many I can do. I know multiple times I've done 10 to 12 without hitting failure, so I would say maybe 12 to 15 for me. Just a dead hang. I know a couple weeks ago I was just over at a friend's place, a married couple of mine, and he has a chin-up bar there because he's been doing like greasing the groove, and a few of us were just playing around, and I jumped up and cranked out 10 real quick without really hitting failure, just to do it. So I know I'm good for 10 without failure, just randomly, random times, just walking up to a bar. So about maybe 12 to 15 would be my max at this point. And you guys have seen me do weighted chin-ups with sets of 8. So that's probably about where I'm at. What I would say for most people, try running the Greasing the Groove program. A lot of people have successfully got up to 20 reps running Pavel Tausseline's Greasing the Groove. And your other option is to just get stronger on chin-ups or pull-ups with weighted chin-ups. Just treat it like any other exercise. Regular progressive overload will get you there. But as far as if right now you're able to crank out 15 pull-ups or chin-ups with your body weight right now, you're actually way, way above average. That's really good. So it is going to be a lot harder for you to progress from there. But yeah, getting up to 20 could be a good benchmark for somebody who just really wants to get good at that sort of body weight exercise. Just to say you could do it. And you could do a combination of either the Greasing the Groove program or just get stronger at it through doing them with weight and progressive overload like any other exercise. All right, next question. What do you think of Jerry Ward's video stating that each person has a different muscle fiber makeup, ergo everyone has a unique style of training that they can respond to better? Are some people just more genetically suited to high, medium, low reps due to a personal muscle fiber makeup? Yeah, there's variations in our species, but we as a species are generally slow twitch endurance based. We're very much an endurance based species. We're not that strong. We don't have as many fast twitch fibers as most other mammals. However, that being said, yeah, there are variations where people are better at lower versus higher reps based upon their individual muscle fibers. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get bigger by doing one versus the other. That's the thing to remember. It's still about reaching a certain amount of metabolic fatigue and threshold. And the thing is, your individual muscle fiber distribution there is probably not going to significantly impact how fast you grow as a result of doing the different reps. The same rules still apply to everybody there. And maybe there could be some variations of where one person might get 2 or 3% more growth per year by focusing more on one versus the other. But the rate coding is still the same. Most of your low threshold fibers are never going to experience very significant hypertrophy, so focusing on them more is just not going to give you that much size. And it's still going to be just certain types of muscle fibers that are going to exhibit the majority of your muscle growth. And all of those fibers can be hit using both high or low reps, provided workload and metabolic fatigue and intensity are sufficient. So it's really irrelevant there. I think people really focus on that sort of thing from a genetic variation way too much. It simply isn't going to matter as much as people think it does there. As long as you're getting progressive overload with sufficient workload and sufficient intensity, you're going to be able to stimulate muscle growth irrespective of what rep range you are using. And that's going to be true irrespective of your genetics. There's going to be very little variation from person to person on that. It's going to exist, but it's not going to be that big of a deal. All right, next question. What is the optimal thing to do in between sets? Sit quietly, cardio jumping jacks besides the bench rack, flop your arms around. If you're doing upper body, stare at your watch and count the seconds until the next set. By the way, I put this question on your Facebook wall on Monday. I really want to know what I'm supposed to be doing between sets. What's the best way to recover before the next set? Moving versus not moving, moving a lot versus not moving too much. Thanks. Okay. Question was a little over the place. Well, the reality is if you are lifting weights, your goal from lifting weights should be to stimulate muscle growth and to stimulate strength gains. Therefore, you should be resting between your sets. When people start doing supersets and things, they're doing that for the purpose of cutting down their gym time. That's the only purpose. It may not give them maximum stimulation, and in some cases, doing any activity between your main work sets could actually reduce your progress because you're not recovered as well. You're not stimulating as much adaptation from each set because you're not able to handle the same amount of weight and do the same amount of workload on it. So it's not necessarily a good thing to be doing stuff. People are trying to do that to burn through more calories, but in all honesty, using your weight lifting as a way to burn more calories may not be the most efficient way to do it. If you want to burn more calories, be more active outside of your weightlifting, do some cardio. Finding ways to boost your caloric burn in between your sets is really not going to give you ideal stimulation, and it can be defeating in the purpose of weightlifting. Unless, of course, you're doing it near the end of a workout, as long as all your real work is done with good breaks between, with sufficient workload. If in your later part of a workout you want to do that stuff just to burn through some extra calories by doing additional volume on weightlifting, fine. Be more active, do other things, do supersets. But definitely don't do that early in your workout. You should be trying to stimulate muscle growth and strength, not be using it to burn through more calories. So it's kind of counterproductive to do anything between your sets early in a workout. All right, next question. How do I prepare for 1 week of vacation where I will be consuming relatively large amounts of alcohol and perhaps eating a bit more than normal? My question is, are you a serious competitive athlete or professional athlete to where 1 week of enjoying yourself and relaxing and lowering your stress levels by doing a little drinking, eating a little more, being relaxer in your training so that you can enjoy your vacation and enjoy your life? If that's really that big of a deal to you to where you're worried about this much, I would have to say that maybe you have the wrong career. You need to be focused on being a professional athlete or something if your training is that important to you. And in fact, if you're more of a recreational lifter or you compete casually, taking 1 week per year to go enjoy yourself on a vacation may actually lower your stress hormones and your cortisol enough that it will help you recover and make better gains, because you're going to be less stressed for several months after just enjoying yourself and letting go on a vacation every now and then. And I can understand if someone's a very serious competitive athlete, maybe earning a living as a professional athlete, maybe you've got $1 million contract. Okay, maybe that week of vacation isn't the best of idea with all of the relaxing on your diet and things. But even in some cases, professional athletes with multi-million-dollar contracts still do that. So put that into perspective. Just the stress relief of that and not caring and worrying about that stuff for 1 week a year for your vacation may actually be better for your gains in the long run. Again, it's just about mindset and de-stressing and just bringing down your overall stress level so that you can recover better. Stop worrying about shit like this. All right, next question. I am getting ready to start TRT prescribed and monitored by a doctor, but I have been cutting to get rid of this stubborn body fat on the lower abs that I can't ever seem to get rid of. I know low testosterone causes body fat, so when starting TRT, should I continue to cut or start bulking to take advantage of the extra muscle you would put on? Well, I can tell you right now that if you have legitimate medically low testosterone and you're not going on good TRT prescribed by a doctor with pharmaceutical grade testosterone, I think you're going to be very pleased with what happens over the next couple months. And I don't just mean with your sex drive and your sexual performance. What you're probably going to find, as long as you stay near maintenance calories and your training is good, meaning you're either on a very small deficit or a very small surplus, so it's either a slow bulk or a slow cut, you're probably going to recomposition for the next couple months, irrespective. You're probably going to lose a little bit of fat and gain a little bit of muscle, no matter what you do, as long as your food intake isn't too low or too high. So just go in and train. If you even want to stay at maintenance calories for a little while, or anywhere near them on a slow cut or a slow bulk, it doesn't matter, just pick one. You're going to gain muscle and lose fat with any of those three food intake scenarios, because your body is going to see a massive change in nutrient partitioning, your recovery is going to get better, your energy is going to get better, you're going to be able to train harder, you are going to gain muscle and lose fat anyways. It's going to be almost like experiencing your noob gains again for a little while, for at least a couple of months. So I wouldn't put a lot of thought into it. Just pick one and run with it. And you can even adjust it. You can get a couple weeks in and decide you want to cut a little more or gain a little muscle a little faster and eat a little more. Do whatever you feel like doing. You're going to have that honeymoon period to where everything's going to be fantastic for a couple of months. So just roll with it and just enjoy those gains again. They're going to be really nice. All right, guys, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.